Welcome to Unique African Folk Tales and Stories. Today we begin a deep and powerful story. This is not just a tale, it's a journey through the life of a girl whose destiny was written before she was born. The story is called Adaobi's Curse. A long time ago, in a small village of southeastern Nigeria, there lived a couple named Obinna and Nneka. They were good people. Obinna was a strong farmer. Nneka sold palm oil at the village market. But even though they were kind, hardworking and respected, they had a problem. They had no child. For many years, Nneka got pregnant, but each time she lost the baby. The villagers began to gossip. Some said Nneka was cursed. Others said Obinna had offended the gods. After the seventh miscarriage, the couple lost all hope. Then, one rainy night, Nneka heard a voice in her dream. The voice said, "Go to the river, call on me, I will give you a child." When she woke up, she told her husband. Obinna didn't want to believe it, but Nneka was sure. That same evening, they walked far into the forest to a river called Umuji, which the villagers feared. No one fetched water from that river. It was known to belong to spirits. They stood by the water and Nneka spoke. "Great spirits of Umuji, if you give me a child, I will return and I will give you anything you ask." The wind blew. The trees shook. Then all became calm. 3 months later, Nneka became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy stayed, the baby grew, and after 9 full months, a beautiful baby girl was born. They named her Adaobi, which means first daughter of the palace. The whole kingdom celebrated. The couple was finally happy, but they forgot something. They made a promise and they never returned to the river. Adaobi grew into a bright, beautiful child. By the time Adaobi turned 16, she had become one of the most beautiful girls in the village. Her skin was smooth as palm oil, her eyes clear like morning water, and her voice soft like a flute. People said she brought peace wherever she went, but something strange began to happen. At night, Adaobi would wake up screaming. She kept having the same dream. A dark river, a woman standing in white, eyes glowing like fireflies, and a voice whispering, "Come back to me, you are mine." At first, her parents said it was just a bad dream, but the dreams became stronger, more real. Adaobi started talking in her sleep, sometimes in a language no one in the house understood. One morning, she woke up with her legs wet, as if she had walked into a river in her sleep. Her bed was dry, the floor was dry, but her legs were wet and muddy. Obinna, her father, became worried. He went to the village priest, an old man named Dibia Okika, and explained what was happening. The priest closed his eyes and sat silently for a long time. Then he opened them and asked, "Did you make a promise to the spirit world when this child was born?" Obinna looked down and said nothing. The priest shook his head. "You cannot take from the spirits and forget them. This girl is not fully yours, and now the spirit has come to collect." That same week, Adaobi stopped going to the market. She said people were staring at her, even when nobody was around. She heard drums at night, while no one else did. She saw shadows dancing in the corners of her room. One afternoon, while fetching firewood, she sat under a tree to rest. There she saw a young man, tall and handsome, dressed in white, with cowries around his neck. His eyes was deep, too deep. He smiled and said, "Adaobi, I have missed you." She jumped. "Who are you?" But he didn't answer. He touched her hand. It felt like cold water. Then he disappeared into the forest without a sound. She ran home crying. When she told her mother, Nneka began to shake. She remembered the river and the promises. She fell to her knees and began to cry. "Oh, Adaobi, What have I done? The spirit had come and he wanted what was his. That night, Adaobi could not sleep. She stayed up watching the door, holding her wrapper tightly around her shoulders. Each time the wind blew, it felt like someone was calling her name. She wanted to forget the man in the forest, but his face refused to relieve her mind. In the morning, Obinna and Nneka sat her down. Her mother held her hand and said, "My daughter, please listen to what I am about to say." Adaobi's heart began to beat fast. "You were born after many years of pain," her mother began. "You were the answer to a prayer, but that prayer came with a price. We went to the river, the sacred river of Umuji. We begged the spirits there to give us a child, and we promised that the child would belong to them." Tears fell from Nneka's eyes. "We never returned. We did not think that it mattered, but now they have come for you." Adaobi stood up quickly. "I am not a spirit's wife. I am not anybody's sacrifice." Her voice shook. Her body was hot with anger and fear. She stormed out of the house and ran into the forest. She did not know where she was going. She just wanted to run. Suddenly, she stopped. She was standing there again, the man with scary eyes. He smiled gently. "Adaobi, don't be afraid. I have been watching you since you were a baby. I have waited long enough." Adaobi stepped back. "Leave me alone." "I cannot," he said. "You were given to me. You belong to me in the river." She turned to run, but her feet felt heavy. The air around her thickened. Trees began to spin. Then everything went black. She woke up in her own bed. Her parents were standing over her, calling her name. Nneka said, "We found you beside the river laying on stones. You were not breathing at first." Obinna said nothing. His eyes were red. He knew now that this was no longer a dream or imagination. The spirits had claimed her. Over the next few days, things got worse. Adaobi stopped eating. When she slept, she spoke in a deep voice, a man's voice, speaking in a strange language. Goats in the compound began to die. The stream behind their house dried up, and the chickens refused to lay eggs. People in the village started to murmur, "This girl is cursed. She is not normal. She is possessed. She belongs to the river." Even Adaobi's friends avoided her. Then the chief priest came again. He said, "Your spirit husband is angry. If we don't do something, the land will suffer. You must return her to the river or prepare for more loss." Obinna said, "You mean sacrifice her?" The priest said, "Not sacrifice. Give her back to who she belongs to. She is not your daughter anymore." Adaobi heard it all. She did not cry. She did not speak. She just walked into her room and closed the door. That night, she made a decision. Before the rooster crowed, Adaobi had left the house. She tied her wrapper, put on her mother's old slippers, and carried a small calabash of water. She walked into the forest alone. She did not know where she was going. She just followed the trees and the wind. After hours of walking, she saw a small hut. Smoke was coming from the roof. A white goat was tied to the door. She knocked. An old woman came out. Her back was bent, her skin full of lines, and her eyes cloudy, but somehow she looked powerful. The woman stared at Adaobi. "You finally came." "You know me?" Adaobi asked. "I've been waiting. Sit down." Inside the hut, the old woman gave her food and water, and then she told Adaobi everything. "You are a spirit child. Your soul was borrowed from the river, but you also carry the strength of the living world. You are caught between both." "Can I be free?" Adaobi asked. "Yes, but it will not be easy. To break the bond, you must first face the spirit, not run from him. You must look him in the eye and tell him no. But if you are weak, he will pull you under forever." "What happens if I go back to the village?" Adaobi asked. "They will give you to him. They will not fight for you." Adaobi sat quietly. Then she stood. I will face him. The woman gave her a charm, a small red stone tied with black thread. This will protect your heart, but only if you are sure. Adaobi returned to the river by sunset. The water was calm, the air was cold. She stepped in slowly. As the water touched her feet, the spirit appeared, tall, glowing, beautiful, and dangerous. You came, he said. I did, Adaobi replied, but not to join you. He frowned. You are mine. Adaobi raised the charm. I was giving, but I never agreed. I chose my own path. The river rose, thunder cracked, wind screamed, but Adaobi stood firm. The red charm burned bright. The spirit shouted, then vanished into mist. The river calmed. Then a strong wind blew over her face. It was dawn. Adaobi walked out of the river alone. The next morning, rain fell over the village for the first time in weeks. Crops began to grow again. The chickens laid eggs. The sicknesses disappeared. Adaobi returned home. No one dared to question her again. She was no longer a child, but was a woman who had faced a god and won. From that day, people came to her for help. She became a healer, a guide, a legend. But every year on her birthday, she still poured water by the river, not to worship, but to remember. Thank you for listening to this story on Unique African Folktales and Stories. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves deep and meaningful stories too. There are more powerful tales waiting for you on this channel. Stories full of wisdom, mystery, and African tradition. So take a moment to explore the others. You might just find a story that speaks to your spirit. Until next time, stay safe and never forget the power of stories.